Good morning, everyone. Apologies for our technical delays and Zoom seeming to change settings on us. I know we're going to have a small crowd here, but we're going to go ahead and still run through this. This is going to be recorded, so we'll send this out for other folks to get to watch as well. So my name is Jeremy Pitts. I'm the managing director for Activate here in Houston, and hopefully you're here to learn about Activate specifically as it relates to Houston. Joining me on the call is Rick Kempinski, who's our director of recruiting. So as we talk, feel free to drop questions in the chat, and Rick will help answer those. Also with us is Alec Einstein, who's one of our current fellows. And so Alec will be able to share the fellow perspective, and we'll let him chat about that here in a moment. So I'm assuming everyone can see my screen. We're good to go. Cool. I'm going to assume that everyone at least has a reasonable idea of what Activate is. So I'll blow through the background stuff pretty quickly, focus a little bit more on the Houston specific stuff, and then we'll leave some time for all three of you to ask us some questions. So Activate was started on the premise that scientists are working on all these big, hard technical challenges and helping to solve the things that we need to solve to, make humanity sustainable for the future. But that a lot of this technologies get stuck in the lab because the scientists don't necessarily know what to do with that. So Activate was started on the premise that these scientists need support bringing their research to market. And so that's what we do. We help transform you, the scientists, the inventors, the technologists, so you can hopefully transform the world. And this is just a picture of our kickoff retreat that we do every year, where all of our fellows, both from their first and second years, and all of our staff join in a retreat. So we exist to support our fellows. We don't charge fees. We don't take equity. We're working with fellows who make things, and we're working on things that are for a purpose, right? Hopefully doing something good for the world. So a little bit about what our model is. And again, I'm assuming that everyone has at least some basic background here. Happy to answer more questions on it, but fellows embed in a community, specifically Houston in this case, but we have other communities as well. We help you kind of develop skills. We have programming. We help you learn some of the businessy side of things. We help you learn about, find advisors, get a good pathway to market. We provide you funding, and ultimately looking at trying to get your technology to market. Some more specifics there. We provide $100,000 a year stipend for the 2 years that you're with us. Another $100,000 in R&D funding. And then we say here at least another $75,000 in additional flexible capital. So this is a little bit of a side thing that we do with our venture partners. It's called our Venture Partner Program, where we provide some access to, basically we shortcut your access to some early venture dollars. So the stipend and the R&D funding is totally non-dilutive. That's essentially free money for you, no equity there. The venture partner money that is true equity. That's not dollars directly from Activate. So that comes with kind of all the conditions on it that come from external investments. We have an expert community. So we have managing directors that run each of our communities, like myself, who have all been kind of through hard tech startups and kind of survived to talk about it. We've got a strong network of both technical folks, including our fellows, and access to all sorts of investors and advisors and industry folks, and corporates, and all these other things that'll hopefully come in handy on your journey. And we've got sort of world-class entrepreneurial education, and we sort of custom fit that to sort of support you on your journey, kind of wherever you are on that journey, and whatever support you might need. Again, we have 5 communities. So Activate started out of Berkeley, embedded at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab back in 2015, and expanded to Boston in 2019. We launched our New York and our kind of remote first Activate Anywhere cohorts in 2021. And then we launched here in Houston in 2023 with our first cohort starting this year. So does it work? Some of these are vanity metrics, but it's good to track sort of how we're doing with the companies we're supporting. So we've supported 249 fellows who have started 196 companies over the 10 years Activate's existed. Those companies have gone on to raise $3.2 billion, which we think is pretty good. I think it's hard to sort of wrap your head around that number. So probably a more valuable thing to think about is 39x leverage. So every dollar that Activate has put into these fellow-led companies, they've gone on to raise 39 times that externally, which is a pretty good return on sort of our investment. And perhaps more relevant for aspiring fellows, 96% of the fellow companies that have gone through Activator are still active. So, very high success rates, especially kind of in hard tech startup land. So why are we in Houston? Again, Activate sort of has its roots on the coasts, kind of in the more traditional startup cities. But we made the decision to come to Houston a couple of years ago, again, launched last year, because Houston just adds a different wrinkle to kind of what you can get out of startups that are working on these kind of hard tech, deep tech things that are trying to do big, impactful things for the world. The way I like to think about it, you can have the most amazing technology, the most incredible thing that you're tinkering away with on a lab bench, and it doesn't matter, right? Like to do things that are going to make the world a better place, to do things that are going to tackle these big global challenges, you have to do them at scale. You've got to go big. And Houston is a city that knows how to scale things, right? Houston's a city that knows how to solve hard problems. Houston's got the workforce that knows how to build these big things, right? Houston's got more chemical engineers than anywhere else in the country. So as you're thinking about these solutions that many of these scientists are working on, there's probably some black box core cool thing that's happening in the middle. And a lot of times you have to build a system around this. You have to build process around it. You need pipes and valves and controls and all these other things. And this is a city that can help build that. So we've got the thesis that this is a valuable place for us to be, both for our Houston-based fellows and frankly, it's a pretty interesting pathway for our fellows around the country to sort of get access to some of the resources here in Houston. Obviously, Houston's got the traditional energy industry, and that's super useful for a variety of our companies. But Houston's home to NASA. Houston's home to the biggest medical center in the world. So it's got all of these big industry things going, maybe a little bit more under the radar, but huge chemicals industry, a lot of these sort of green materials, green chemistry type things that we see come through Activate quite routinely, really good access to the corporates and kind of the big companies working on those things. So there's just a lot here and a lot going for it, even though Houston isn't as much of a traditional startup ecosystem. We think it's coming along, and we're excited to be part of that journey. So what does being part of Activate Houston look like for you? So this is actually a picture of us just from a couple weeks ago. We did a big Meet the Cohort event. If any of you are local and were around for the Houston Energy and Climate Week, we had sort of an anchor event during that week where we introduced our cohort officially. And so all of our fellows got to give up and give a 3-minute presentation into a room with a lot of investors, a lot of corporates, a lot of really useful people in the room. We probably had north of 150 people in the room. So really good event. That's kind of a once a year thing that we don't do all the time. Our kind of standard routine, every other Thursday, we're meeting in person, doing local in-person programming. that's generally focused on community. Most of the sort of pure education programming type stuff happens at the national level, and that happens sort of on the off weeks. But we're very focused on building a community, right? The founder's journey is often a lonely journey, so we try very hard to build a community around people. And so you do have that support system. You do have people you can lean on and ask questions to and work with them. So we get together again every other week. We've got lunch. We have community time. We'll bring in a speaker. Sometimes that's going to be a founder giving a founder's talk. Sometimes it's going to be somebody giving a little session on something that might be useful to our fellows. We had someone do a storytelling session for us a few weeks ago. Depending on what people need, maybe we'll do an IP session. Maybe we'll do we've got somebody lined up to do like a session on like Six Sigma and scaling processes. And so really we're just trying to do useful things. But again, the local programming is more focused on community. Just a little bit about the ecosystem. So again, for those of you who are local and based here in Houston, we office out of the Ion, which is kind of the heart and center of Houston's innovation ecosystem. There's, every day I bump into investors and folks that office out of this building, and there's events and things going on all the time. So it's a great place to be, good energy. We're close to stuff. It's convenient to have people meet you here for coffee or whatever you need to do. We're pretty well tapped into kind of all the other major ecosystem players in town, whether that's Greentown Labs, whether that's, Rice or UH or the other universities, various investors, not as many investors in town as we would like to see, but we know the ones that are here pretty well. And we're obviously connected to other investors around the country as well. We did establish ourselves as an anchor member of Houston Energy and Climate Startup Week. I think that just goes to sort of what we're trying to build as part of our place in the Houston ecosystem, because this is a sort of newer, smaller ecosystem. We're working very hard to establish Activate kind of as a presence and build our brand, and hopefully end up in a place where you tell somebody you're an Activate and that means something, and that's important, which it is true right now if you're in the Boston startup ecosystem. It's true for the most part if you're in the Bay Area startup ecosystem. So we want that to be true here in Houston as well. So the team, 3 of us here locally. Again, I'm the managing director. My job is kind of hands-on work with you, with the fellows, support you with whatever you need, connect you to people, try to hopefully flex my Rolodex a little bit of contacts. Nirwan Cargo is our fellowship manager, so she's the one that makes the engine run. She handles all the kind of operational things. And then Rosemary Hernandez, who actually hasn't started yet. She starts next Monday. We're super excited for Rosemary to start. She'll be providing kind of additional support for us as well. I do like to give this one case study. Apologies if any of you have heard me talk about this before, but I think it's such a great Activate story, and it's such a great Houston story. And so as we are building Activate Houston, I love giving the story. So Fervo Energy, Tim Latimer. Some of you might know, so Fervo is working on geothermal, specifically enhanced geothermal. So the idea being that they can tap into some of the lower temperature resources and still make geothermal work, which sounds obvious now, right? Probably mostly because of the work that Fervo has done. But if you go back into 2018, when Tim and his co-founder Jack Norbeck applied to Activate, geothermal was only happening in really niche locations like Iceland, where they had the right kind of level of geologic activity to support that. And not only that, but some of the stuff that Tim and Jack were talking about had been tried a while ago, like in the 70s, and all this sort of quote unquote experts sort of agreed that there was no sort of widespread place for geothermal. And Tim and Jack thought they could do it better. They had an idea tapping into a lot of the expertise out of the oil and gas industry, which is part of why this is a great Houston story. Using advanced drilling techniques, horizontal drilling, a lot of the fracking techniques that have been developed in the last 20, 30 years, and apply those to geothermal and build these closed loop geothermal systems where they maybe do have to go a little bit deeper, but they can tap into, these kind of 300-400 degree temperatures, and that's enough to provide, this nice baseload power that you can get out of geothermal. And again, this category didn't exist when they applied to Activate, which is such a great Activate story, right? We try to support the things that are too early, too big, too bold, too crazy for a company to necessarily stand up on their own. So Tim and Jack came to us, they had this big, bold idea. Activate supported them for 2 years. Over the course of those 2 years, they were able to flesh out the idea. They were able to go get funding from ARPA-E and other places like that, and kind of pick up enough traction that then leaving Activate, they have been able to support the company through private dollars. And obviously they're doing spectacularly well now, right? They've got I think something like a 10 megawatt plant that's up and running, a pilot system in northern Nevada, powering a Google data center. They've drilled their first wells for this 400 megawatt plant that they're building in southern Utah. That they're seeing above expected results, and so they're just kind of off to the races. So I think it's a great story. These guys are doing the things that all of our Activate companies want to do and aspire to do. And they're doing it in a very kind of Houston way, which is great. We love having Tim as kind of a local alum here in Houston. So yeah, again, Tim, a little quote from Tim saying how the fellowship was transformative for him. So transitioning from former fellow to current fellows. So we have 11 fellows in our 2024 cohort here, and I won't go into details on all of them, but I will turn the floor over to Alec to tell us a little bit about himself, a little bit about what he's working on, and then a little bit about your experiences in Activate so far.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I'm not going to sign current fellow and CEO of Coflex Purification. We're a spin out of Rice. So I did my PhD and postdoc in Houston, and so Activate coming to Houston, I think, was a big just push for us to actually take the tech, move it to a lab. And we really worked on creating a new kind of catalyst that can both absorb and destroy PFAS, forever chemicals. Commonly found in water, and they're a huge pressing regulatory issue as we really need to clean them up. As we've seen current regulations changing at a national level, especially from the EPA for drinking and wastewater. But the current tech available to actually permanently destroy these kind of chemicals out of the ecosystem doesn't exist. And so that's kind of what we were pushing forward. And happy to talk more about the tech, but I think to talk more about Activate and how it's really helped us make a ton of progress is that having it here in Houston really first let us, stay in Houston, having the support here versus looking, where would it make sense to go on funding and other things, and that really building that ecosystem has been, I think, a huge help to us and the team, as well as just having the community and programming. So it's not, a bunch of people. And so it's really been able to learn. We've been able to move a lot quicker because of Activate, as well as getting, all of Jeremy and the team's inputs from Jeremy, but also just all the support staff and in the fellowship and at Activate. I think there's over 50 staff members. So experts across a wide range of things for all the kind of business stuff that, as a scientist, you're not super familiar with. And it's been just really exciting, especially this time in Houston now, as we're really starting to see things kind of grow in the ecosystem, to be a part of it. So it's kind of my spiel there. I'm going to pass it back to Jeremy.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. Yeah, as Alec mentioned, we've got the local team here, but we do have our national team. So we have folks who are focused on investor programs. So, working with investors, maintaining our Rolodex of investors, helping you prepare to go out and fundraise. We have a team that is focused on corporate partnerships. So again, maintains those relationships, helps you kind of get access to the right customers, whether you're looking for just voice of the customer stuff, whether you're looking for corporate partners, whether you're looking for advisors, all these kinds of things. So a lot of those areas we can help. And frankly, it's kind of in our DNA as an organization for Activate, that all of our team is here to support fellows first and foremost. So like our HR team, which people and culture, as we call them, they jump in and support fellows if you're having an HR issue. Our finance team has supported fellows in the past. Again, just answering questions, being available. So kind of at our very core, we exist to support fellows, and we do that kind of across the organization. So a lot more resources there, I think, than might be evident from three of us sitting here in Houston with you. So cool. Just a little bit on next steps and where you go from here if you're interested in applying, and then we'll open it up to any questions we might have. So as you hopefully know, if you're here on this webinar, applications are open as we speak. They will remain open until October 23rd. And then we kick off what from the outside looks like a fairly long and comprehensive review process, and it is. And having gone through it on the inside, I can tell you, even though it looks long, we're really, really busy, and we work really, really hard on the selection process because it's part of our special sauce, honestly. So we'll go through internal and external review, kind of through the first couple of months. We have external technical reviewers help us out because obviously there's a pretty crazy range of things that we see, and we obviously are not experts on all of those. We'll aim to cut to the top sort of 35 or 40 that are semifinalists, and those we take all of them into that's 35 or 40 per community. Sorry, they come into video interviews with us, where we meet you on a video call, get to talk a little bit more about your technology, get to know you. And then we take our top 15 or so onto finalist week. We actually spend time helping you prep for that, working with you on a presentation. And then we have a week where we bring in lots of people from our network to sort of help review what you're working on, mostly technically focused, but thinking a little bit about kind of your application and what you're doing, and take in all that feedback, and then select our fellows for a start date next June. We are pretty broad in what we will support. If you've looked around on our website, we talk about 16 verticals, all these kinds of things, but generally speaking, I would say if you're working on something that's doing good for the world and that's going to help a lot of people, that's in scope for us, with a few minor exceptions. We are looking for hard tech. So not to say that we've never supported a pure software business, but there has to be a pretty compelling reason. We're generally looking for something that's got sort of a hardware component, not necessarily like building a mechanical thing, but maybe you're working on green chemistry or green biology or things along those lines. Because we are focused on kind of doing good for the world, we do end up heavily represented in climate. 70 or 80% of our companies sort of have at least some sort of climate angle, but we're not exclusively climate. So if you're not working on something in climate, you certainly by no means are you not eligible. A couple things about you. So you have to have a bachelor's degree and generally a technical bachelor's degree, and at least 4 years of post-baccalaureate experience. Typically, we see that in the forms of PhDs, but that's by no means a requirement. Our standard fellow is someone coming out of a PhD or a postdoc, like Alec was, kind of spinning technology out of the lab. But again, by no means is that a requirement. Certainly, mid-career folks are eligible. Talked about sort of having hard tech focus. You do have to be working on a startup for the first time. Again, we're looking to have as big of an impact as possible on the people we support. So if you're a serial founder, we love that. We love having you in the ecosystem. Let's hang out. We'll invite you in for a founder's talk. but you probably don't need our support in the same way that a first-time founder would. You do have to be working on the project full time. We are not trying to get you to drop out of grad school. Please don't do that. But generally, the way our application process is sort of slanted towards more of an academic timeline, right? So you're applying in the fall, and hopefully, if you're still wrapping up your PhD, hopefully planning to wrap up kind of on that timeline to be able to start full time with us in June. You have to be legally eligible to work in the U.S. You do not have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. We do accept foreign nationals, but you do have to have work authorization. Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Oh, one other, you cannot have raised more than $2 million in dilutive funding in debt or equity. And that's kind of the hard cutoff. If you're out raising $1.5 million in kind of pre-seed funding, you probably don't need us. And we're probably going to consider that even if you meet the hard thresholds. There's going to have to be probably a more compelling case for why you do need us. So again, we think a lot about like who needs us the most and how we can kind of take our limited resources and try to leverage that into the biggest impact. So love to be supportive to all the entrepreneurs out there, but we have to kind of focus on having as much additionality as we can in the people that we support. So what can you do now? You can go fill out your application. Again, as we speak, it's open, it's up, it's live. If you go to that activate.org/apply and go ahead and click the apply now button, the first page of that is just kind of an info sheet. If you go at least that far into it, you'll get on our mailing list. So you'll hear about other things that are going on. Like this will be the only Houston specific webinar, but we're having, continued webinars. We have office hours with some of our staff to help you if you have application questions. We will be having 2 more in-person office hours for those of you who are local to Houston here at the ION. So you see the times and dates there, October 2nd and October 8th from 3 to 4 p.m. again here at the ION. And again, lots of resources and information up on the website if you need it. So that's everything I've got there. Again, happy to answer questions if any of you have them. Feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand, or I guess we're small enough here, just come off mute and start yelling at me and we'll chat. Or maybe more importantly, you can ask questions to Alex since he's got a better perspective than I do. Yeah, Sebastian, what's up?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the talks. It's really exciting to hear about Activate Houston and kind of the industries that you guys support. I'm coming from the biology sector. I'm finishing my PhD right now, and I've worked with people in Houston before because I'm in the space medicine sector. The company that I am involved in and I'm gonna be applying with is not related with that field, but I'm starting to notice that Houston is starting to come up in the biology sector as well. And I'm just curious if you could speak a little bit about companies that are in the biology sector, biomaterial sector in Houston Activate, and like how you can support them.
Yeah, great question. The short answer is we don't have any biology or biotech companies in our current cohorts here in Houston. I think the longer answer though is biotech and biology is very much a vertical, a popular vertical within Activate sort of nationally. We do work very hard to sort of make kind of one Activate fellowship. Like your experience here in Houston is going to be different than your experience would be in Boston, but hopefully only subtly, right? You're getting all the access to the same resources, and so we have everything from sort of like vertical focused Slack channels where you can get on a biology Slack channel and ask questions, see other biology fellows. Actually, 2 of our managing directors have have biology backgrounds. I do not. And so, you always have access to the other managing directors. If you need kind of a specific, something kind of specific in your space, in your technical area. I do know we're sort of friends with, there's some folks starting an industrial biotech kind of incubator thing here in town that called BioWell that we know and are connected with. So there's a number of resources like that. I would say, generally speaking, I mean, we do take a really crazy wide range of technologies. And one of the reasons why we're able to do that is usually people don't need help with the technology, right? That's not what we do. We don't help with the technology. We help with the everything else. So we're helping you figure out how to commercialize the technology. We're helping you build a business around it, and those things kind of are applicable across different areas. Is that helpful, Sebastian? Did I answer your question well? Or?
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you so much. It's good to know that regardless of the location, the Activate experience is it's complete and similar regardless of the location. That's really good.
Yeah, and we work hard to. You saw that picture at the start if you were on the call, and I just kind of glossed over it, but we do kick off with this big retreat, and one of the reasons for that is so all of our fellows nationally get to know each other. And so we see a lot of people helping each other, right? Like as much as I try to be helpful and can help fellows, like generally somebody else has dealt with the things you're dealing with, and kind of within the community, we find super valuable support, both locally and also kind of nationally as well.
And I just want to add, in the application itself, you actually have the opportunity to rank the community. So if you put Houston first, that's great, as we want that to happen. But you also can put Boston as your second choice, with the idea that if you get selected, you would relocate. So only put that on there if you're willing to relocate, or if you want to put the anywhere community as your second choice, whatever you want to do. But you are able to rank in the application. You don't, you're not wedded to the one community, but typically that primary community, you should be very much, wanting to be placed there.
Cool. Bill, you had your hand up first, and then got tired of waiting for me. So
no, somehow I knocked it down.
Yeah.
So the question I have is on the committed full-time thing. So I do some consulting to pay the bills. Are you guys going to require all that to stop? Because I have a few clients that I need to wind down next year.
Yeah, good question. I haven't seen that specific scenario. I would say, I would say no. Like, I think there's probably some flexibility around that. No, as in we're not going to require you to immediately cut those relationships. One of the big reasons for the stipend is so people can pay the bills and focus on the company full time.
Exactly.
Obviously, the 100K stipend sounds great when you're coming right out of a PhD, and is maybe less great when you're mid-career. So we understand that. One of the things, it's technically written up actually is 32 hours a week. And the reason it's written like that is around grant funding, and you can put yourself as the PI on grant funding and get more of your time covered that way. This is something we see where people are applying to grants, since a lot of our funding comes from the government. The government doesn't like when you double pay for things. They tend to put people in jail for that kind of stuff. So yeah, long story short, I think there would be some flexibility around that. We want to see you sort of giving it your all on trying to make the company a success if you're part of Activate. But we understand people have different things going on in their life, and we'll try to do our best to work around that.
Okay, good deal.
Saber, I don't know, how are we?
Hi, thanks for great presentation and clarifications. I have a question similar to Sebastian's. I got my PhD in Texas A&M University in College Station, and have been working as postdoc at Harvard Medical School. My question is that I'm working on a proposal for a surgical robot for microsurgery. I know you mentioned that you're preferred for like clean tech energy or something similar. I'm wondering if you have surgical AI background, and also I've been working with like Harvard Medical School. I'm gonna get their resources, for example, data sets. However, my wife is studying at Texas A&M, working here, and my preference is to be in Houston. And yeah, I'm wondering if it's something feasible for Houston community.
Yeah, so a couple of things to unpack there. So first, I do not have a background in surgical AI robots, so sorry, can't directly help you there. So life sciences is a bit of a gray area for us, and what sort of projects we support in the life sciences. What we have discovered is our expertise is not in human health. And so if you're working on things where some of your biggest challenges over your 2 years in Activate are going to be things like clinical trials and FDA approvals and things like that, we are not the best support system for you. That's just not what we do. It's not what we know. There are plenty of other great programs out there. There's a lot of great stuff through the Texas Medical Center, other places like that, assuming you're looking at being in Houston. Where we do see ourselves being useful, and we've had some great success stories in the past, kind of in the life sciences, are things that are platform technologies, where someone comes to us and they've got a lot of different potential applications, potential use cases for a technology, whether that's, some sort of, like Sebastian was talking about, some sort of biologic where it's got applications in human health, but it's also got applications in agriculture, for example. So when you have a platform technology and you're working to kind of understand your product market fit and working through your techno-economics for various applications and that kind of stuff, that is where we can help. So again, I would say if you've got a robot and it's specifically focused on surgical applications and that's kind of the path you're down, it's probably not a great fit for Activate, to be candid. But if you're, developing AI robotics, there's other cool stuff you can do with it, and you're considering human health as one application, these surgery applications, then that could be a fit for us. And I would just encourage kind of in your application, talk about sort of the platform nature of the technology and kind of different things it can do. And again, if human health is the first application you're looking at, that's fine. But that's kind of what we would see. I don't know if I directly answered your question, but
yeah, I have like for the technology side, for example, for the hard science or so, I have like mentorship. I have like the network and both Harvard Medical School, Houston Methodist, the Engineering Medicine Department of Texas A&M. But the problem or the challenge we have is the money and the resources we need to develop the hardware we need to, for
Yep.
example, get the robot, get the IOCT microscope or so.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something that might be a little bit out of line, but I'm gonna say it anyways. If the only reason you're applying to Activate is for money, you are not a good fit for us. Like that is not what we do. There's better ways to get money other places. Activate is about helping you with transition from scientist to entrepreneur. Activate is about building a community around you. We provide some funding along the way to support that mission. But we work very hard to create value outside of just giving you money. So again, if you're just looking for money, I'd strongly encourage, go look at NIH grants, go look at other things like that. It's probably not a good fit for us, to be candid.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks?
Apologies, I had this in my calendar for next week for some reason, so my mistake there. But just a quick question. I think this is recorded. It'll be sent out afterwards. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
And then as far as anything that we should be doing or that I should particularly do, since I missed some of the initial parts, is any follow-up conversations with you or anything like that, or that are helpful or anything like that?
No, I mean, generally speaking, connecting with me and pitching me kind of in advance of the application process doesn't do you much good. The
Understood.
initial stages of the application process are blinded anyways. We have a selection committee, so I'm only one voice in the room during that process anyways. If you've got questions or things, we've got some office hours coming up in person. If you wanted to pop in for any of those, happy to chat there. But yeah, nothing that you need to do. If I had no clue who you were and never heard of you, and you submitted an application and it was a great fit for us, you have as good a chance of getting in as somebody who, I've known my whole life. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. One tactical question. I apologize if this has already been covered, but the techonomics model, I'm just a little curious about the level of maturity that you're expecting at this stage. What level of depth? How are you planning to use that throughout the application cycle? That'd be super helpful to hear some of your thoughts there.
yeah, so we are expecting scientists to apply who do not have a lot of training in other businessy things or things like techno-economics. I actually think it does seem like there's a trend that we're seeing that more and more PhD programs are kind of doing a little bit of sort of thinking about why they're doing what they're doing instead of just pure research for research sake. But generally speaking, we're not expecting a very sophisticated analysis there. We're not expecting a full-fledged business plan. The reason we include that at the application stage is we want to make sure people are thinking about that stuff, right? We want people to kind of understand, oh, there are some use cases for what I'm doing. Here are some potential applications. Maybe you don't have that fully fleshed out. Maybe you don't fully understand that. Maybe you don't have like your TAM numbers or whatever else, your market sizing all totally complete. But at least like thinking about the applications, thinking about like, hey, there is a potential market for this. There is some world where some people would pay me money for this thing that I'm developing. Because if we don't do science for science sake, right? We do science for trying to do good for the world. So it's at some point somebody's got to pay money for that, where it doesn't matter. So that's the level we're looking for, is just making sure you're thinking about it and have at least somewhat of a story there about how this could be a real thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. A follow-up question, and feel free to tell me this is in the recording, just go back and watch it. That's okay. But if you were to describe your ideal candidate for specifically Activate Houston, what are some of the themes that would make someone perfect for Houston?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even hazard to say anything on that. I think
Okay.
if you look at our fellows, like they're across all kinds of different technologies, all kinds of different applications, all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences. Honestly, one of the things we work very hard on is building sort of a diverse cohort. And that's, across the sort of traditional metrics of diversity, right? But also across, diversity of technical area, diversity of background and experience, diversity of, the school you went to, diversity of all these kinds of things. Because there's value in that. And we see a lot of value in that. And so, there is no perfect candidate, because I don't want just like, a army of 10 robots that all look the same that are working on the same stuff.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Are there any current gaps that you see within the Activate Houston cohort?
Yeah,
that you
again, we don't think about
don't
it
look at
like
that?
that.
Okay,
We don't
sure.
have an investment thesis. We don't, we're looking, and I probably didn't say this explicitly, so thanks for giving me the chance to do it. When we're reviewing things, we're looking for technology that matters. That's kind of the first sweep we do, is if this works, does it matter? We're looking for, something that's legitimate and real, and the person is the right person, we believe, to actually execute on that technology vision. And then we're looking for additionality. So we're looking for every one of our applicants, once they get a ways in the process, we talk about a theory of the fellowship. Like, why does this person need the fellowship? Like, what are they going to get out of it? How are we going to help them? Like, if we can't point to a specific way that we're going to help an applicant add value to their journey, then it's probably not a good fit. So that's kind of the stuff we're thinking about.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Cool. Any final questions as we wrap things up here today? And for those of you who joined on time, looking at you, Alan, thanks for sticking with us through our technical challenges, getting started here. Appreciate you all joining us, and hope to see some applications from you.